there have been times that I tried to be more edited on different things, and it's like, yeah, to look dope, but for me, I feel like people connect with things more a little differently when it's a little more raw.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like I started raw, got kind of polished, then it's like, okay, I got to bring it back and find a happy medium. So now I'm just at this happy medium where I'm just being myself. Trolls leave crazy comments. I don't care. I just be myself in my videos, and it connects with people. And that's the whole point, is making an impact. As long as I'm making an impact, I don't care if somebody think I ain't got no eyebrows, which is a common thing people say. I just keep it.
Welcome, everyone. This is Chi Chi from Hip Hop Scriptures. Really excited. Have a treat for you today. I am joined by Grammy nominated producer, Mr. Tone Jones. And Priscilla, our writer extraordinaire, is also here.
Hi.
Yeah. So we got a lot of gems to drop for you guys today, but let's just kind of let's get into it. So Tone, can you just give our audience just an overview of who you are before I start my line of questioning?
Okay. Well, basically, I'm a producer, I'm a husband, I'm a father, a little bit of everything, based in Atlanta, Georgia. I've been doing music for a long time. Started playing keys in 1983, and I'm crazy enough to still be doing this after all this time. And I do it full time now, and it's just a blessing.
Absolutely. There's so many things I want to ask you about, and so many layers. But one of the first things I wanted to ask you about, I'm very big on innovation and just new ways of doing things and technology. I just really want to understand your role as part of this sound design collective. So can you explain for our audience and for me, what exactly is sound design? How did you get involved in it, and what's your role, and what do you love about it?
Okay, well, sound design is basically, how you have the different producers, the sounds they use when they make their beats, or either could be sounds that people use when they're scoring movies, or whatever the case is, whether it's a violin sound or vocals or whatever the case is. I'm one of the guys that helps design those types of sounds. So my role is pretty much in that collective is we have different projects that we take on, and then everybody comes together with their strengths, and we put everything together to each of us, kind of brings our own flavor of sound design to the table. And as a collective, we complete those projects.
So it sounds like some of those projects are beyond music. It sounds like there's some movie and film involved as well.
Yeah, I have to be careful. You have NDAs, so.
Yes, of course.
Definitely, it could be a variety of different things that we're involved in, but it's definitely a pleasure to, do something like that. And then you'll see somebody in some other part of the country, like messing with a sound that you made. Like, there's so many times I'll be on Instagram and I'll just be scrolling, and then somebody be making a beat with a sound that I made. It just blows my mind. So This is crazy.
Without breaching any NDAs, can you tell us just an example of just like one of the weirdest sounds that you've used in sound design?
Well, people who follow me on Instagram know I made beats out of craziest things. I made beats out of washing machines. I made beats out of zoo animals, like dead serious. So I do those types of things a lot of times when I'm designing as well. Like, I'll record, what's one of the craziest things I did? I used a sink. We had a leaky sink at one of the old houses that we were at. And I made a sound out of the sink, and I was playing the sink across the keys, and just stuff like that I like to use when I'm designing, just to think out the box.
Amazing. And how did you fall into this particular opportunity or collective? Did they find you, or you guys came together sporadically?
Well, what's crazy is I started as a customer. That's how it all started, because just making beats for so many years, I've always pretty much done my own sound design when I'm making my beats anyway. And I was just doing a lot of crazy stuff on Instagram. Then I ran across their stuff, and I really liked their stuff, and I was buying a lot of it. And then I would do videos, using their sounds. And sometimes I would take their sounds and make something crazy with it on the video. And that eventually led to them reaching out and us building a relationship. And and we just started working together, and it's been amazing.
I'm super excited to learn more about it, to be honest. It's not even something that I do, but I definitely want to learn more. And I know our audience is going to be just thrilled to hear more and learn more about that.
Definitely.
Something else that just knocked me back off my seat, given my role at Hip Hop Scriptures. So I'm going to call this chapter of the video "Not Growing Up Hip Hop," because you did not grow up hip hop, but you're an amazing producer. And you didn't know that Biggie and Tupac were dead.
No, I did not know. I did not know. Didn't even know who they were. Well, basically growing up, I grew up in pretty much a Christian household, and my dad had went through this phase where he just threw away all his rap, CDs and tapes at this time. Threw away all his cassette tapes, because I remember he had a box that he had them in, and I wanted to go listen to stuff, and he ended up throwing them away. So the only hip hop that I really got to hear was like in passing, like a friend maybe rapping lyrics to, like, I knew about OPP. I mean, that's about it. I knew about a little bit about Master P, but other than that, it was straight gospel. I listened to nothing but gospel. It was a gospel.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thankful for that, because it helped me to get a really rich musicality, and it helped me later on, when I was able to finally hear some hip hop and, kind of mend those elements together.
Right. And your father, Pops, he's a musician, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Can you talk about how he helped you develop into who you are now musically?
Well, basically, the way they tell it to me is it was just like a regular day. We were watching TV, and I had a little toy keyboard in front of me. I was 3 years old at the time. And they said a commercial came on. And after the commercial went off, I started playing the melody for the commercial. That's how it started. And he was already a musician, a piano player. So of course, when he heard this, he went crazy. So from that point, he just kind of took me under his wing and started nurturing me and showing me the ropes, and like really teaching me a lot of things along the way that helped build me up to where I am today.
Mm-hmm. That's so important, and a beautiful story.
Thank you.
And 3 years old, and it's like, you zigzag. A lot of us, I think there's things that we go back at 1, 2, 3, our family could tell us we did, but we zigzagged and tried this and tried to get a job, and it's right there in the first 3 years of life. You kind of know what you are. So
right.
But and you also were part of a Christian hip hop group, right?
Well, we did I did some Christian hip hop rap like a long time ago.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that. Like a long, long time ago, it was like this group that I was with a couple of my friends. And, we was kind of doing it a little bit, but we wasn't like super serious about it. Well, we tried to be, but then we didn't. It was kind of like half and half, but it went nowhere pretty much.
Yeah, I do my research. I would say for me, I'm born and raised in Chicago. So whether you want to or not, if you are from Chicago, and Black gospel is just part of your foundation as a person. And my family has their own church, for goodness sake. Wow. There's a lot of eyebrows raised at first, but then they've been cheering me on with Hip Hop Scripture. So for me, and this is how I sold it to my family, the intersection of gospel and hip hop is the struggle, and testifying to that struggle and making something beautiful out of it. And, you have some very interesting highlights, I'll say, in your story as far as struggle. Can you just talk about, coming from this gospel background, being this very successful hip hop producer, and just the importance of struggle and what it means to you?
Man, I didn't realize, it's one of those things where I appreciated the struggle in the moment, but like way after the struggle, especially in times like right now, like I really appreciate that struggle, because I see how it molded certain characteristics I was going to need in this journey. I was going to need perseverance. I was going to need to be able to control my emotions. That's one of the biggest things, It was times where I was sitting in the house. Oh man, we didn't have no heat. It's a long story. I try to make it short, but basically me and one of my friends were staying in this trailer. You know, first time we out on our own, we trying to learn how to be men, and we being terrible at trying to do it. So we didn't have no heat, we didn't have no air conditioning because a dog went up in the house and tore that up. That's another story. Anyway, so I'm in here, I ain't got no money. I got like a can of corn and some bacon bits in there. It's hot as all get out, and I'm still in here making beats, still in here working on my craft. So that type of stuff just, it taught me how to keep going even when it's tough. And that's one of the biggest things. If you learn how to do that, ain't nobody gonna be able to stop you.
Amen. I think something else that, especially for up and coming producers or folks that may literally just be starting out, and I can testify to this with my platforms, like, can you just talk about the importance of having a web presence and a website specifically as a producer, and just being organized around that as well?
Yeah, one of the best things that we have right now is internet, because it allows us to take more of a responsibility with and have more control over our own success. You know, whereas you may have to, it's like now you don't have to sit around and wait for somebody else to do this or do that, or wait to be discovered. The keys are in your hands. So it's so important to build up your own, like you said, presence on social media, so people will know what you do. You can be the dopest person in the world, but if don't nobody know, you know, you're only going to get so far. And you have to be consistent at doing that too. But social media, definitely your own website, as we've seen over the past couple of weeks with Facebook and Instagram going out.
Yep.
You need to have your own website too. So when something like that happens, it's like you just don't exist no more. So those things to kind of go together in order to help propel you forward.
Absolutely. And then part of your web presence is on AirBit.
Right.
I want to talk about, we've been approached by a lot of different competitors, but I will say, doing my research, AirBit has been featured in Forbes, and so have you. And just, it seems like it was a big watershed moment for you as far as just what you're trying to accomplish. So can you talk a bit about how AirBit was a big deal in that?
Yeah, they came at the perfect time. It was at a time where I had went full time, but talking about technology at that time, whenever somebody would buy a beat, then now I have to go and get the files together. I got to send the files. I have to, you know, do the contract. It's like, you know, a lot of after work. So, and that's cool at the beginning when you're not getting a whole lot of business. Then when things start growing and, you know, things start speeding up, you realize, man, I barely have time to get these orders together. And what happens is you get behind. Then, hey, it's like, hey, where's my order? I paid for this, you know, whatever so amount of days ago. And then you just become overwhelmed. And, you know, that's what happened to me. It got to the point where I was so behind that I got basically a reputation of being unreliable, not because I didn't want to be, it's because I bit off too much that I could chew. I didn't have the right infrastructure in place. And I lost a lot of business, and we ended up getting kicked out of an apartment because of that.
Oh no.
So yeah, so you go through these things to learn though. So I definitely don't regret it. I'm glad it happened, even though that sounds crazy to say. But in 2012, you know, I learned about AirBit, which it was my flash store at the time. And basically what it allows you to do is go ahead and upload all your files and get your contracts and everything together. So that way, if somebody goes to buy a beat, they don't have to wait. They already got their files. You know, it takes the information that's in the order and it puts it in the contract, and then you can sign that contract. So it's like everything is done. So you can use that time that you just saved to do something else to build your business.
Right.
And so that's what it was. I got onto the platform and I just marketed to the audience that I had already built. And, you know, things started making more sense, you know, so it was very crucial to have that platform. Otherwise, I definitely would not be able to handle the type of traffic that I get now, trying to send things out one at a time. I'll be out of business for sure.
And just to speak to, like you said, you already have this audience that you started building up. But as far as the craft side of it, I've heard other very well-known producers say this as well. Why is it important to remake beats? And do you still recommend that for folks in 2021 who are trying to get into this game?
Well, I know definitely when I grew up, that's how I did it. You know, even before I got into beats and I was just, you know, trying to learn the gospel song that we got to play on Sunday or whatever the case is. I would sit there and I would listen to it, rewind the tape over and over again until I get the chords, until I understand. And, you know, I just translated that same thing into hip hop. And what it does, it helps open up your ear and understand what somebody's doing and also why they're doing it. And then it's not so you can copy them per se, it's just so you can take the root skills that you've learned under that and then apply that as you go forward and experiment to develop your own lane.
Yeah.
So I think it's very important to do that in the beginning.
And you obviously are a producer, but just talk a little bit about stepping outside of that title and moving into this composer role with the work you did with Lecrae. How did that come about and what was that like?
Well, the crazy thing about it is it was something that wasn't planned.
Okay.
I honestly didn't know about it until the song was done. So basically what happened was they ended up leasing the beat off my website. I had a beat called Feels Like Sunday, which had the chorus on there, which that was actually me. That was me as the choir.
Wow.
I just recorded myself a bunch of times. It was a process, but that's one of the things people like when they see me too.
Oh my God.
So that's what happened. You know, they just used the choir. They just used the choir and they ended up redoing the beat and, you know, doing some more different things. And that's pretty much how I got a Grammy. They used my choir. So I just got an email with the paperwork and I'm like, oh, I didn't know this was happening. So but that was before the Grammy thing. That was just for the song. And then, you know, months later, somebody texted me and they was like, yo, you nominated for a Grammy? I'm like, what? Me? For what? And so it was one of those things where it was totally out of my hands. It just happened, you know.
I'm sorry, we have to pause and read.
Right.
What in the world made you, what inspired you to do yourself, like record yourself as a choir? Like you said, obviously that took a lot of different recordings and then you have to like arrange it properly so it sounds like a choir. What was the inspiration there? Were you thinking of anything in particular where you wanted this track to land, or what was the inspiration?
Well, pretty much just by the way that the track sounded. You know, I just wanted a choir on it and I don't own a choir. So I was like, I'm just gonna make my own choir. And it was the first time I tried it and I've done many more since then, but man, I did that. And when I put the track out, people went crazy over it. It's still one of my most popular ones today. And the ironic thing about it, craziest thing about it to me, is when I did the choir, I was thinking of Kirk Franklin because he's one of my favorite gospel artists of all time. So I do the choir with Kirk Franklin style, and then here it is all this time later, it lands on a song featuring Kirk Franklin. It's crazy. So that's pretty much how it happened.
Okay. I'm gonna keep it moving. I'm still very much in awe, but so what would you say? A lot of folks, myself included, we just make beats off the side when we are inspired. It's not something I'm not taking seriously at this particular moment, but I think then, you know, folks who have more time, they do start to level up and start maybe putting their beats on SoundCloud and start looking for not just an audience, but, you know, potential partnerships and purchasers. So what would you say, given how easy it is to get your sounds out there today, what are some pitfalls that like brand spanking new potential producers should look out for?
Well, I think that's part of it, is that the thing is easy to put it online, right? But producers will put their beats online and think that now they can just sit back and the money's gonna start rolling. It does not work like that. Like you have to put in your legwork, like we was talking about earlier, building up your audience. And I don't think people understand it. They think that it's a thing of, you know, you can kind of just make it happen. It's a process to it. I learned in my experience, the more that I put myself out there and be authentic and be genuine and even put out free valuable content, then it's like the more I get that back in the form of either likes, comments, or a lot of the time sales. So that's part of an audience building, so people can get to know you, not just know your beats, know you, know why you do what you do. And then through that, people can have something to connect with. At the end of the day, it's about connecting with people. It's still a people business. So if they connect with you as a person and they value you as a person, then they're more willing to pretty much buy anything you offer that's of quality. So that's a big part of it.
Absolutely. And speaking of that, I noticed you just completely let loose. It's really refreshing on your Instagram account. It's just like, it's you. It's not you trying to personify something else or put out something that's, airs or this overly polished account. Can you just, is that, I mean, obviously it's you, but like, why is that important as well? I mean, like you said, it's about connecting, but is that how you always approach your Instagram account, or did you kind of evolve into that?
Well, I pretty much always just, put out whatever that I felt at the moment. And, there have been times that I tried to be more edited on different things. And it's like, yeah, to look dope. But for me, I feel like people connect with things a little differently when it's a little more raw. So it's kind of like I started raw, got kind of polished. Then it's like, okay, I got to bring it back and find a happy medium. So now I'm just at this happy medium where I'm just being myself. Trolls leave crazy comments. I don't care. I just be myself in my videos, and it connects with people. And that's the whole point, is making an impact. As long as I'm making an impact, I don't care if somebody think I ain't got no eyebrows, which is a common thing people say. I just keep it moving.
Oh, wow. Yeah, definitely don't feed the trolls. No. A couple more questions. So I've heard a lot of people say this, and I've only been to Atlanta, I think twice, maybe once my whole life, but you grew up in South Carolina, and it's approximately 3 hours from Atlanta.
Yeah, about 3 hours, yeah.
Which is not a long distance, but what's so transformational and magical about Atlanta, especially if you're a Black entrepreneur, or regardless if you're in the music industry or otherwise? I actually met someone over the phone recently who said she moved there from California, and her words were that it's unmatched, the opportunities that are there. And I was like, okay, wow. And then I saw that you've kind of had similar sentiments. So what's so magical about Atlanta?
Well, for me, I would say it's because, where I'm from, which, I ain't got no problem repping my state. A lot of people start putting their little place down when they leave. I'm from Aiken, South Carolina.
Okay.
But that's where I'm from, right? And it's a wonderful place, but, it's kind of like one of those things, you grow up, you get a degree, or you don't get a degree, you go to work in a factory, whichever one, and then you just do that until you die and you retire, and then you live the good life. And it's like, for me, I don't know, that just never computed with me all the way. It's like, there's other things I want to do, but that doesn't work with that system and that environment. So it's like, I knew, okay, I'm probably not going to be able to really do what I want to do here. And my homeboy was in Atlanta. He wasn't my brother-in-law at the time. He was just my friend. And, he would bring us out and we would do beat battles. And it's like a whole nother world. I see all these people just doing what they love to do. It's like a normal thing to just kind of go after your dreams here, versus where I'm from is like, this is the way you're supposed to do it. If you don't do it this way, then you're stupid.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, well, I kind of like this a little bit better, and so the more we went out there, the more I did not want to go home. I remember one time we were supposed to go back, and I was with a cousin of mine. He drove up. I was supposed to drive back, and I was on the floor laying there acting like I was asleep because I didn't want to leave. I'm ashamed to say I did it, but I did. And it worked until the morning. But when we got up, I had to drive either way. But, I just didn't want to leave. And
yeah,
man, when my homeboy called me up and, he seen me struggling where I was, and he told me, he was like, man, you can come stay with me and my wife until you get on your feet. Then it's like this, I want to go, but man, what are they going to say when I leave? I got all these roots and all these things that I've built here. Leaving is going to make a lot of people mad.
Yeah.
And it was the toughest thing I had to do. But when I made that switch and I moved to Atlanta, it's like being in that environment all the time kind of opened my mind. Even if there is more opportunities, I think it's more of an environment thing.
Yeah.
Because the environment that you're in, kind of dictates how you act in a sense, and dictates how you perceive things. So man, my mind was open up, and I think that's what helped me get to where I am today, just being here.
That's so important, what you said
Yeah,
about environment, because I spent like 10 years in New York, and I exactly what you're saying, like where it seems like I'm doing too much, you know, in the environment I grew up in, there everyone's doing too much. And it's like you find your tribe really quickly when you're in that
right,
type of environment, and you grow in ways that you just never could imagine if you had not left home. So
exactly.
yeah. And then family, the family that you grew up in, the family that you joined, the family that you've created. You just talk about for you personally why that's so important in just your growth as a person, as a man, as a professional.
Yeah, family is a huge thing for me, and sometimes I feel like God kind of groomed me for being able to be a family man in a sense, because you know I have a common story. I grew up in a single parent home after a certain point, so it you know now I'm kind of gotta, you know, you feel like you gotta be the man in the house, so it grew me up. And my grandmother moved in, so you know I had to learn how to be the referee between those two sometimes, my mother and my grandma. And you know, those types of things just trying to make kind of made me more mature to the point that when I got out on my own and I didn't have that anymore, it's like, okay, now I want to build my own family, you know. And I had put that all the way at the end of my goal list, but God was like, no, because as soon as I moved to Atlanta, I was married in 5 months. So
Wow.
yeah. And then, you know, it just kind of evolved from there. And it's like, man, one minute I'm here in South Carolina and I'm praying for a family, this and that, all of this and the third. 5 months later, I'm in Atlanta and I'm married now. And then my wife ended up getting pregnant by the end of the year. So it's like, okay, now I got to get into this role. And, you know, learning patience and different things helped me when I got into that role. And even with that, I was terrible at it at first. But I'll be trying to make a beat, and my daughter just being there swinging a little swing, diaper dirty. My wife coming in like, "What are you doing?" So I had to learn. But you know, I think there's something about when you're in a position of um, being responsible for other people's well-being.
Mhm.
You know, it's like it gives you a different type of drive. So even from a business standpoint, I don't think I would be where I am if I didn't have that drive, you know.
Can relate. I have two, I'm using air quotes if they're watching, grown sons because they're technically adults. But no, this has been great. I definitely want to make sure we leave time. Please let everyone know, besides Instagram, but give your Instagram handle, where they can follow you, connect with you, just continue to learn from you, and continue to watch your journey.
Okay, well, yeah, like you already mentioned, Instagram, official T Jones. That's my Instagram. That's where I'm at most of the time. I'm also on YouTube at it's youtube.com/official Tone Jones. I've been sleeping on YouTube, but I've been getting better at, you know, uploading more. So I'm on there a little bit more now. Um, you can also listen to my tracks on my website, tonejones.com. And that's pretty much it. I don't use Facebook no more. I got tired of Facebook. I don't use Twitter no more. It's either Instagram or YouTube where you catch me pretty much.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I know Priscilla and I got a lot out of it. I know our audience that continues to grow here on YouTube and elsewhere will get a lot out of this. And if you're a producer in training, producer wannabe, Tone just dropped a lot of gems. And even if you're not, if you're just trying to make it, doing something, you will definitely learn a lot from this conversation. So I thank you guys again. Thank you so much to Tone Jones.
Okay, my
And
pleasure.
continue to follow and support Hip Hop Scriptures. And we will see you guys next time.